for another week of the waiver wire? Before we really get into it all, go ahead and click the subscribe button now. Did you do it? All right, let's go. Oh man, hope you guys had a great week. Let's go ahead and dive into the quarterbacks. I'm picking up Gardner Minshew again. Last week was horrible. Granted, I at first admit that I started him in a lineup and it did not turn out well. 5 points, 6 points, was it? Yeah. Well, this week he had DJ Chark back. Last week he did not have DJ Chark. I believe Chark is that type of presence that he needs. Gardner Minshew leans on him, and just having him there, I think, helped the game flow. And so he scored, or he had 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. Throughout this year, if you take a look at his schedule, it's pretty favorable. I expect him to be booming, so pick him up. Next, I want to suggest Kirk Cousins. Mediocre Kirk Cousins. Mostly because, again, favorable matchups and the emergence of Justin Jefferson. If we take a look at Kirk Cousins' next 2-week games, it's going against the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks. Both the 2 worst teams against quarterbacks. Now, granted, part of that is probably because of all the shootouts those 2 are in. But Atlanta Falcons and Seattle Seahawks are allowing a phenomenal amount of points going to the quarterback position. So I expect Kirk Cousins, along with Justin Jefferson at his side and Adam Thielen, to be threatening for points. All right, and let's take a look at the running back position. Injuries to note. It's small this week. We had Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler, both going down and are expected to be missing significant time. With that being said, I probably should also say that Kenyon Drake, not injured exactly. He went out with the chest injury, but he seems to be doing okay, but not on the field. My thinking is that Chase Edmonds at some point will start taking over more of a role. Secondly, for the running back position, oddly enough, I'll be the first to admit it, I'm not a huge Todd Gurley fan. Reports were coming out during the summer of him already showing signs of a limp. And you've noticed if you take a look at percentages, they are reducing how much he is on the field. Yes, he's still getting 20-plus carries sometimes, but if you take a look at yards per carry, they're pretty small. And I think that they're going to start using Brian Hill throughout the season. And if you take a look at the Atlanta Falcons rushing schedule, it's going against, and I'll read this to you, Green Bay, who allows the second most points to running backs. Carolina, third most allowed points. Minnesota, 11th. Detroit, 5th most allowed. And back to Carolina, 3rd most. Right, so the stretch of games for Brian Hill is favorable. And I just don't think Todd Gurley is really going to get it done. Now, trading for Todd Gurley is an option, obviously. But Brian Hill is on 12% of rosters in ESPN leagues. Much cheaper to acquire, and I think over the course of the season, Brian Hill is going to allow you about the same amount of points. All right, let's put a disclaimer for this next one. Little hashtag, I'm somewhat suggesting Rex Burkhead, Damian Harris. Recently, just today, Damian Harris was brought off the IR. Sony Michel going back on or put on to the IR. And then the Patriots running back schedule is not favorable. So pick them up at your own caution, but it is bodies. And in this time of COVID, if we know anything, is that they could cancel a game at any moment. And so having depth, especially at the running back position, is super crucial. All right, let's move on to the wide receivers. I like all these wide receivers, some more than others. But the first one we're going to talk a little bit about is Laviska Shenault. I don't think he did super well, or granted, I don't think he was ready to actually start being the number 1 lead guy for the Jacksonville Jaguars. In DJ Chark's absence, as we already talked about, he didn't do very well. And neither did Gardner Minshew. But as a second wide receiver on the team, he's quick, he's agile, and they're using him in all facets of the game. So my guess is that he's going to do pretty well. Pick him up. Secondly, T. Higgins. AJ Green, he's not AJ Green of old. And so I think T. Higgins is going to slowly start to usurp AJ Green. He's already kind of in the third pecking order, which isn't much to say, but as a rookie, being involved, he has 24 targets over the last 3 weeks, which is, of course, any rookie that's getting 8 targets per game is someone to take notice of. And not to mention the past connection with Joe Burrow, makes him interesting to pick up and watch. Next, we have Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller is the ever-present whew, I can do it, ever-present force. The only consistent person there, it seems like. Chris Godwin is still out. Mike Evans is out with an injury, though he'll probably play and come back. But watching that game, he landed pretty awkwardly on his ankle. And so Scotty Miller is definitely involved. If not the third receiver on the team, he's going to be the second. And, who knows? They're maybe both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin will be out at the same time. And who else is Tom Brady going to throw it to? So Scotty Miller should be picked up, and he's only rostered in, no, that can't be right, 11% of leagues. Pick him up. Pick him up. Lastly, for the wide receiver position, I'm almost embarrassed saying this, Tim Patrick of the Denver Broncos. That place is a wreck. I would almost put it on par with the Jets. That kind of bad. But there's nobody else to throw it to. Noah Fant's out. Cortland Sutton's out. KJ Hamler's out. And so they really don't have anybody to throw it to. Right? Oh, by the way, and if you're playing Melvin Gordon, kudos to you. I think that he's the only star player they have, with Philip Lindsay also being out. And their quarterback being out. So, Tim Patrick. Last week, he did 6 of 7 catches and for 113 yards. And on top of that, he added a touchdown to it. The point is that sometimes it's not about talent, but opportunity. All right. Let's take a look, lastly, at our tight ends. I'm going to say that again. Tight ends. Got that throat thing going. Dalton Schultz. What are we doing, people? Why is he only rostered in 32% of leagues? Dalton Schultz is a part of the Dallas Cowboys offense. And that Cowboys offense is doing nothing but throwing it. All 4 weeks, Dak Prescott has averaged 50 throws per game. If you split that evenly among the 5 top pass catchers, 3 receivers, running back, tight end, each one gets about 10. Now, in this case, Schultz is, he's getting 8 average targets. That's a lot for a tight end. And on top of that, he's not a boomer bust on touchdowns. He's actually getting receptions and some yardage. And so the touchdowns will come. They'll tack on, and it's going to be really nice. And so when I look for tight ends, I look at them who's being consistent. Granted, he doesn't actually go downfield like Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce, but he's consistent and he plays the under route, which is, of course, where Dak Prescott typically likes to throw it to. So please pick up Dalton Schultz. He's a good streamer. He's a good player. I think of him as a low-end starting tight end. So if you're streaming or if you picked up a tight end late, pick him up. And lastly, once again, Drew Sample. Joe Burrow is leaning on the tight end. Last week, Drew Sample got 4 catches for 37 yards. Again, it's a modest tight end score. But again, you just tack on that touchdown, which comes every once in a while, and you're dealing with a solid high tight end 1, right? Now, granted, not like George Kittle last night, got me 40 points, but I'm excited about that. But Dalton Schultz, last week he got you 18, and that's nothing to scoff at. So, picking up Dalton Schultz and Drew Sample, this is the waiver wire. Please do me a favor and click subscribe, and then take a look at some of the other videos we have. It really helps as we're trying to start this company. I really appreciate your support. See you back next week.